Hi everybody, this is Noelle with Petitti Garden Centers, and we're doing a spotlight on Delphinium. Now, Delphinium are one of the most spectacular blooming perennials out there in the garden, and we're going to tell you how to grow them and what to do in order to have beautiful Delphinium in your garden. We're here, they're just starting to bloom in June, and that's a typical plant for our National Perennial Gardening Month. And so Delphinium is really appropriate for this time of year, because this is when you see them, is definitely in June. We've got a really Tweety bird, so I hope if you hear that in the background, you'll know why. And we came out here in the middle of some raindrops, so hopefully we won't get too much rain in this video. So let's talk about Delphinium. First of all, the name comes from Greek, Delphis. Delphis means dolphin. So if you look real closely at the flower buds on Delphinium, they're supposed to represent a dolphin. I guess you could say that, you know, a little bit of a dolphin look to it. Some of the hybrids, more of the hybrids that you know, some of these taller hybrids are called elatum hybrids, and elatum also means tall in Greek, so just be aware of that. So they can get very tall out in the landscape, some of the varieties as well. They're part of the ranunculus family, so Ranunculaceae. They are actually related to things like your columbine or Aquilegia. They are related to clematis, so that's very cool as well. They are related to Helleborus, so that's your Lenten rose. So they have lots of relatives in the landscape, and they do really well for us in Northeast Ohio, typically, as far as the ranunculus family. And there's actually some weeds that are in the ranunculus family too. So again, not all perennials are beautiful ornamentals, and we're getting a little wind now, but this one obviously really is. Start out with your Delphinium. Delphinium really like sunny conditions, but there's a little caveat there where morning sun, afternoon shade is perfect for them. They like cooler conditions, and when it gets really hot during our summers and humid, they don't really like that. Now, more newer varieties of Delphinium have been bred to be more heat tolerant, but still, if you could offer them an eastern exposure, morning sun, evening shade, or a semi-protected area in the south or the west, that's going to help, because those cooler temperatures are really going to get them to bloom a little bit more regularly, hold on to their foliage for you, and all those good things. Okay, so sun is full sun conditions, 6 or more hours of sun. However, morning sun is really great, and then they can cool down and be shaded in the afternoon is going to be ideal. Okay, next thing is soil. They like a medium moist but well-drained soil, and I know it seems like an oxymoron, but again, they don't like dry conditions. So you want to keep that soil moist. You don't want it to get overly wet or puddly, because they can actually get crown rot. So it's important that they're in well-drained soil and the water is draining away. So we always talk about amending our clay soil, making sure that it does drain for them, using organic matter and even sweet peat, because it turns out that they like acidic to slightly basic soil. So anywhere in your pH range from 6.0 to about 7.5. We're getting a little rain, folks. Going from that point, watering. So watering is always going to be a deep, thorough watering, 1 inch of water 1 time per week if there's no rainfall. So do watch your rain gauge, and you'll be taking care of your Delphinium and keeping them moderately moist or medium moisture. Okay, good. After that, fertilizer. Just so you know, Delphinium do like to be fertilized. So with most of our perennials, we recommend plant tone and iron tone in the spring. And then for midsummer feeding, give them some Osmocote. And that's going to be your green cap formula of Osmocote. In between, if you see that they're kind of losing their coloration on their foliage, it's sort of fading, they're not producing any new blooms for you, you could give them a water-soluble fertilizer like a Miracle Grow, a Jack's Formula, those types of things, balanced fertilizer, and go ahead and give them a quick liquid feed if you see that happening. Just be aware, they do like their fertilizer and they will not perform well if you don't feed them, okay? So keep that in mind. Another thing about Delphinium that I should really make clear here is Delphinium are spectacular in the garden, but obviously the taller blooming varieties, they definitely need staking. So what we need to do is really when they start to push up from the ground in spring and they get to be about 12 inches tall, that's when you need to put your stakes in. Now, again, newer varieties tend to be much stronger, a little bit more compact, very sturdy stemmed. So some of the newer varieties I'm going to show you today really don't need the staking, but some of the taller elatum hybrids, boy, they can get 5-6 foot tall. They do appreciate a stake, so be aware of that. And when you're situating these Delphinium along those lines of giving them support, it does help to plant them in a protected area where you don't get a lot of wind and you don't get a lot of rainfall, okay? So protected areas, really close to fences will help them. As they're a backdrop, maybe closer to the foundation, that will help as well, okay? So do put them in a protected spot or a spot where you have a windbreak or fence. Okay. Next thing with maintenance, as these guys are a little bit higher maintenance than most of our perennials, the reason being is that, again, staking is one of those things. The other thing is they're sort of short-lived as far as a perennial. So if you have Delphinium that come back in the garden for you, as a perennial does, anywhere from 3 to 5 years, you've done a great job. And hopefully they will reseed for you. And sometimes we have to go through and seed and go ahead and sow seed around our Delphinium that are already established so we can get more growing. And we can do that throughout the growing season, usually late spring, early summer, and also late summer and early fall, when we can go ahead and seed Delphinium around our already established ones. Another thing that you need to be aware with Delphinium is they do like to be divided every 3 years or so. And what happens is the central plant or the mother plant tends to die back, and you'll see that the younger plants are kind of formed around that central plant. So it's okay to go in, take a sharp spade or shovel, and go ahead and divide those smaller plants, maybe less mature, but go ahead and divide those and go ahead and use those out in the garden, okay? And just remove that central mother plant as it dies back. So that's something that's helpful with them, that really works and does very, very well. So of course, divisions, they do very well, and you can of course grow your Delphinium plantings from divisions, and then also again from seed. If you have trouble starting the seed or having the seed germinate, they're actually a seed that likes to be covered and likes to be dark. So we do recommend that you can start the seed about 3 months before the last spring frost. And what you want to do there is you can put them in a closed container, like an egg carton, let's say, fill it with moist soil, go ahead, put your seeds in, cover them up with soil, close the lid on the container, and put them in the refrigerator for about a week. You'll start to see them sprouting in those cool, moist conditions and dark conditions. Okay, so that's something too. Okay, let's move on to your attributes. Obviously, besides being a beautiful flower, really, really showy out there in the garden, they do make an excellent cut flower. So many of these varieties have been produced to produce those beautiful stems. And some of these flowers, there's over 100 florets on some of these flowering spikes. So we call these flower spikes or racemes. And so they can be very, very floriferous out there. Each flower, most of these varieties that I'm going to show you today are more of like a semi-double. So they produce a lot of showy sepals around the outside of the flower, And then the true flower is right inside with the small little petals. With some of them, like this one, this little white true flower inside is called a bee. And so sometimes you will see a dark bee, so a darker colored interior of the flower, or a white bee like this one. Okay, so sometimes you'll see that with Delphinium flowering, and they'll refer to the dark or the white bee out there. Now, with these plants, they really are, again, spectacular flowers, but with such a heavy, large flower, it can be hard to keep them up. So again, staking always when you have tall varieties, but also when they're done blooming, they will push the energy into their side shoots, okay? So when this entire flower stalk is done and spent, you would go ahead and remove that stalk down to the next side shoot, which is right here, what I showed you, okay? So when this is all completed and it's faded and drying, go ahead and move down to, yep, that's the right side shoot there. When that one's finished, go down to the next side shoot that's below it. Once the entire stalk is finished, you want to cut it down as low as you can go, down by the basal foliage, okay? I also should have explained that with Delphinium, their foliage is palmate. Sometimes at the lower leaves, it's larger and it has that kind of palmate maple leaf type look to it. Sometimes 5 to 7 lobes on the lower leaves, usually 3 lobes on the upper leaves. So it'll kind of change, but we do like the foliage on Delphinium. It's a bold kind of texture. The other thing that we want to know about Delphinium, as far as the different varieties that, and boy, they'll attract pollinators. They typically attract hummingbirds and butterflies. The really light blue colors can attract bees because they can see that ultraviolet, really light blue. So that's really nice too. But those are the pollinators that you're normally going to see on them, as the butterflies and bees. And I also should tell you, they make a great herbivore-proof plant. So again, the deer and the rabbits don't normally see browsing on these plants. They are considered toxic, so they do have some toxicity to them. So that's why you see those herbivores stay away for the most part. As far as varieties are concerned, we've got a couple different types. And I'm going to show you the shortest variety that we grow first. This one is actually Delphinium grandiflorum. And this is going to be the most compact variety. This variety here, I should say species, and then this variety here is called Summer Blues. There's also Summer Nights, which I know Taylor will show you a picture of because it is phenomenal too, but it's not blooming just yet. So I don't have an open one for you. With Summer Blues, you see that typical Delphinium flower. The foliage is very cut leaf, so it's more like a larkspur. And I hadn't mentioned that, but this is a relative of larkspur. It is a different species altogether. And that's more of an annual type of Delphinium, if you will, larkspur is. So they look very, very similar. This again, Delphinium grandiflorum, is a perennial type. It is obviously very compact. We're growing no more than about 15 inches tall in the landscape, no more than about probably 18 inches wide with this plant. But again, kind of more of an edging Delphinium. So really, really beautiful, planted with your daisies, dianthus, anything to kind of keep the surrounding soil cool and moist. That's always going to be a good thing for these plants, okay? So do look for your grandiflorum type. These are actually native to Eastern Europe and China, believe it or not. Now, the tall type that I have right here, this deep purple, is called Aurora Deep Purple. Aurora is a very, very popular variety. It has obviously very bold flowers, gorgeous colors in Aurora. This particular variety grows anywhere from 3 to 4 foot tall in flowering and about 1 to 2 foot wide in the garden, okay? Now, a deep purple Aurora here, any of the Aurora varieties, they are that hybrid elatum group. Again, so tall group. and they are an F1 hybrid. So they won't really produce seed for you. If they do produce seed, they may spread it out around them. But the thing is that seed is always going to be one of the parents that developed this hybrid variety. So just keep that in mind. The grandiflorum group, same thing. They can self-seed and self-sow around, and they will actually come out and it will be true to type. Okay, so just watch for that. The next variety that I have here is, and I should say series, is the Del Genius series of Delphinium. Now, this one, this kind of pinky violet is really unusual, beautiful color. This one's called Shantae. The one in the back is called Neva or Neva, N-E-V-A. That is the white with a little buttercream. And then we also have a beautiful deep purple with a little bit of like blue edges on the side. That one's called Kingsley, and Taylor will show you a picture of that. These Delphinium were bred in the Netherlands to actually be more hardy. They're Delphinium are very cold tolerant, so we really don't have a problem with them over the wintering over. It's really more of that heat tolerance that we're trying to breed into them. So the Del Genius varieties are more heat tolerant than the Aurora and the Summer series that you see that I've shown you. So that's a really good thing that has been bred into them. They're also very strong stemmed. So these stems stand very upright, very sturdy. Do they need staking? Absolutely. In a windy area, you definitely want to stake these. But I think in a more protected area, you'll find that they'll stand up very nicely for you, and you may not have to stake them, okay? Always good to keep the stakes around and handy for Delphinium in general. With the Del Genius as well, their foliage is very clean. And so I should mention, again, we talk about these being medium and high maintenance. It's really because Delphinium can get a lot of different diseases. So I want you to scout these plants, make sure that you're watching for things like powdery mildews, botrytis, again, crown rot. They can get aphids, they can get mites, they can get some other things too. So it's always nice to watch out for those types of issues. Oh, and I forgot to mention the slugs. So again, a wet season, you might see slug damage on the leaves. So you do have to watch out for those kind of maintenance issues that you might find out there with the Delphinium. But for the most part, the Del Genius varieties have been really nice. Their foliage has stayed really nice, and they tend to keep their foliage as some of the other varieties, older varieties, they tend to lose their foliage as the heat of the summer comes on, as they're dealing with other disease issues and things. So when we have a rainy season like this, you find a lot of yellow foliage at the base of Delphinium. And it's kind of all associated to Cleome. We always talk about Cleome losing its lower foliage as well. And again, kind of has bare knees out there. So it's good to plant other perennials around the Delphinium, around the base, so it sort of covers up that bare knee situation with some of these. But Del Genius seems to stay very clean and hold on to its foliage. So do look for those. These are a double cross, actually. They are a hybrid. They're an elatum times a belladonna species. So again, a little bit different out there and very strong, very beautiful, and something to look forward to. Okay, remember, with your Delphinium, they are perennials, a little bit short-lived than some of our others, but that's okay. Make sure that you're getting seed or you're dividing your plants to propagate more. Also, put them in a sunny spot. Again, 6 or more hours of sunlight, but I really think they do best with that afternoon shade, well-drained but moist soils. Make sure you fertilize them and scout for any issues you might have down the road. Enjoy.